Hello everyone, and welcome to the new updated version of Enigma's Cold War server. So as I'm sure most of you know, ECW put out its 2.4 patch recently, and I've had a chance to jump in, try it, and so this is going to be a series of my first impressions with the new changes, as well as answering some questions that I had that Enigma's own video didn't seem to clarify enough for me. Now, I will certainly be putting together proper guides going through these systems in the future, mostly once I know them a little better and once they settle down, since I'm sure a lot is going to be changing over the coming weeks. As is normal with the new patch, things get balanced and adjusted and so on. So I think the biggest change that has made most people take note is the change to the early warning radar system, in that we no longer have early warning radar coverage in enemy hexes. Now, I was certainly worried about this at first. I thought this would end up meaning that we just wouldn't get any signals. Turns out it's not as big a change as you might think. In Syria, I was still getting pretty good coverage along the front line. What you lose now is any real readings of where the enemy are when they are safely inside their own territory. But we were still getting really good coverage of front line and even slightly into the enemy territory, so we're always getting warnings there. And it does seem that the God's Eye view whenever something is within 10 kilometers still applies. So you still do get an alert just before you get ambushed, and certainly you do get some heads up when there are enemies approaching. Now, still early days here, but what I imagine this is mostly going to shake up is deep strike operations. It's going to be a lot easier for deep strike players to get into position, particularly well off the side of the map before starting to make their run. But then at the same time, it's going to make it much more difficult once they're within enemy territory. They're not going to know if any interceptors are on the way. So all in all, it's not as big a change as I first thought. I think it is going to lead to some more surprises, especially around the frontline areas. You're going to end up getting less notice, but I think that can be quite a lot of fun. We'll just have to see how it goes. Now, the second really big thing that has been added is the new credit call-in system, which I think is absolutely fantastic. So now, for credits, you can call in a variety of air missions to help your side. Perhaps the most important of these being the new AWACS, and this is the one that I did play around with. I did call in an AWACS. It costs 10 credits to call in an AWACS. It will spawn right at the back of your territory and will start moving towards where you selected. In terms of the mechanics of how you go about doing this, once you've got enough credits, you type -request into the chat, and that will give you a code. You then go over to your F10 map, put down a new map marker, and you then write the type of aircraft you're calling in. In this case, I write AWACS, and then put in that 4-digit code that was given to me earlier. Once you've done that, you then click off of your little map marker. It should immediately disappear. You get a little notification that your request has been made. Points get automatically deducted. Now, the only one of these that I tried out is the AWACS. I did try recon, but for some reason that wasn't spawning. Not sure if I was doing something wrong. The AWACS, though, one thing to note is it is very slow. It does take a long time to get to the front, but it does immediately start radiating, so I believe you should immediately start getting threats up as soon as the AWACS itself is able to identify them. Obviously, the closer it is to the front line, the better viewage you're going to have. But this gets automatically added to your EWR display just as it used to. There is no indication whether a particular target is being detected by AWACS or one of the ground EWR systems, so it's a bit hard to tell exactly how effective this is being, but still, very interesting system. One thing to note, though, is the AWACS does not persist across the server reset. I believe it does stay flying throughout the entire server reset session unless it's shot down, but it is probably worth just typing in and searching for the time left before you do summon this in, as it is going to be a waste if you call it in with only, say, half an hour to go. Probably isn't going to even reach the front line. before the server ticks over. Also do note, unlike aircraft, you do not get the points back if it doesn't die. Once you've spent the points are gone. Other little note here, we were hopeful that this was going to improve the player magic JTAC system, which has been really bugged since 2.9 to the point that player GCIs just aren't really a thing anymore. Unfortunately, that's not helped at all. This is very much an ED issue. Eagle Dynamics need to fix whatever they've done to the GCI slot. Now, the other call-in availables I've not had a chance to experiment yet. We do have Recon, which is supposed to fly a recon flight over the front line and give back information if it manages to successfully land, just like player recons do. There's also seed flights you can call in, which will target an enemy airfield, taking out the SAM launchers there. And also, it has just been added that there are bombers available that you can call in to do factory strikes, where they will fly to the target location. If they overfly the location, they will completely destroy a factory. One thing to note is that they don't actually drop the bombs. This is because of the horrible stuttering that we used to get with the old bomber missions. I think this is a really good compromise. Having the bombers there, just not dropping the bombs, might not be as immersive, but neither was having the server drop to 1 frame a second every time the bombs dropped. Very excitingly though, we do now get credits for shooting down all of these AI aircraft, and the AWACS I mentioned before are now vulnerable. They're not immortal as they used to be. I don't know how many points you get for a kill. I would assume it is 1 per kill as it used to be, but I do need to do more experimenting and confirm that. Either way, it's really good to see pure air-to-air players being able to get credits now, especially since there are a lot of these new credit systems which do apply to them. The other really big change, which I'm really happy with, and I did get a good chance to play around with, is the new AI JTACs. Now when helicopters drop recon troops, they become JTACs, so not only do they scout just as they normally did, but now within their little range, they will start to mark targets. Now they do this by dropping coloured smoke onto the target, as well as lasing the target. Not had a chance yet to play around with using the laser-guided munitions, but that seems very interesting. But the smoke rounds were incredibly helpful. Did an A10 sortie, and finding targets was so easy once they had been scouted, with these big smoke markers pointing out their exact locations. What's even better is the smoke rounds do land directly on the specific unit that the JTAC is highlighting, and the JTAC do seem to do a really good job at highlighting enemy air defense before anything else. This can really help with, say, taking out the Shilkers / Vulcans as you're going in. Very easy to spot what they are. They will be the one target that gets initially marked. Also, as a little added bonus, we found this made communicating amongst the team really easy. Different JTACs use different colours, and they will tend to focus on the nearest base towards them, and so we were quite easily able to start calling out specific bases to each other. For example, saying that I'll go in on the white smoke base while Candy went in on the red smoke base, and calling out similar things to one another. Really makes it very easy for communication. All in all, I think this is an absolutely fantastic system. I am so glad they added it. JTAC was one thing I was desperately wanting for the server, so big thank you to Enigma for getting that sorted. And then the final change, which is quite a big back-end change, but probably not something you're going to notice too much of, is the change to how the front line is calculated. This used to be a rather complex system, which I did actually produce a video of that was supposed to be coming out on the same day this video has ended up coming out, but ended up being completely scrubbed because this patch got released as it was sitting in the schedule. So despite me being grumpy about unfortunate timing, I do think the change is a good one. What they've done now is, instead of having factories and depots contribute towards the exact percentage difference you need to push the front line, now factories, infrastructure and depots also contribute, along with frontline ground forces, to your side's total HP. The total HPs are then compared. Whichever side has more HP wins. If they have a large enough percentage over the other side, they will push a sector. I will produce a guide explaining all of this with examples in the future. It will be a much quicker guide than the one that I just made, but I am going to give it a couple weeks just to settle down so the exact numbers do settle down. The only thing that affects the percentage that you need to be able to push now is attrition, and attrition works the same way. As your side loses airframes, your attrition starts to tick up. That means you're going to need a higher percentage. This isn't going to affect your defensive side very much. If you are losing, then you can afford to lose airframes. But if you're winning and you're trying to push, losing an airframe might make the difference between your side gaining a sector or just not having enough points to. All in all, I think the slightly simplified system is going to be much easier for players to read, and so much easier for people to understand the impact they're having. And so I think it's a good thing all in all. I'm happy about this. Do have to see how this shakes out. So yeah, those are my initial impressions of this. Certainly will be looking in more detail about all of these going forward. This is a very big patch that's come out. It's going to make a lot of changes to the server. And I'm looking forward to getting more information, seeing how all of these shake out. If you have any specific questions, do leave them down below, and I will try to answer them as best I can, but I'm trying to work out a lot of this as I'm recording. Otherwise, I hope to catch you in a future video. Until then, remember to be kind to yourselves and everyone else. Cheers.